Alright, what's up everybody? This is going to be kind of like a little bonus video. It's not really going to like be in sync as far as with my daily videos because I already uploaded my day 13 video. But I want to talk about sanctification. Sanctification. So this is going to be for God's people, and it's not going to be a long video, guys. So just stay with me. But yeah, sanctification is different than like being saved. So you're already saved, you're already in the family, you're born again child of God. First, let's figure out what fornication means, because this has to do with sanctification. So first, fornication. The root word of fornication is derived from the Latin word fornicare or fornicare, which means to fornicate. In Greek, check this out. In Greek, the word porneia, P-O-R-N, that's where they get porn from, guys. I just figured that out. Porneia is commonly translated as fornication and is related to sexual immorality. So, checking out those sites and all that, that's very clear that is sexual immorality. That is not the will of God. So these are instructions from the Lord Jesus Christ. It says, for you know what instructions we gave you by the authority of the Lord Jesus. It's in Thessalonians, and it says, for this is the will of God, your sanctification, that you should abstain from fornication. So we got that figured out, right? Like abstain from fornication. We're not checking out those sites. We're not lusting after the females out here. We're not partaking in none of that. We're not messing with people's wives. We're not messing with no one night stands, right? This all has to do with sexual immorality, sexual sins. So we're not doing that, right? Like that's our will, is to line ourselves up with God's will. So sanctification now is the state of being holy or set apart for God's purposes. So this is sanctification right here, guys. Essentially, what I'm talking about is SR. If you're on SR, there's a high chance you're not going to be, right, because you're retaining your seed, so you're not going to be sleeping with women. You're not going to be checking out the sites. And masturbation is still, just because you might not be doing it with another person in real life or through the pixels and stuff like that, because that's like a soul thing. I know there's plenty of videos out there about that, about soul ties. When you partake of a image like that, you're messing with the soul on the soul level, most certainly. So it's basically essentially kind of like the same, as like real life, if not worse, to be honest, because it's crazy, man. It's weird. And then you look at masturbation, and a lot of people will actually justify masturbation because they say, well, I'm not looking at women, I'm not thinking dirty, right? Like some people go really far and say, I don't have any dirty thoughts, and I'm just simply, giving into the pleasure and stuff. Well, the Lord calls this sensuality, sensual pleasures. It's still in the realm of sexual immorality. So we got that figured out, right? So as a born again son of God through Christ Jesus, we are called to holiness, right? So I'm not saying this is going to get you to be saved. This is a big mistake that some people make. They think, I got to do this, I got to do that in order to be saved. Let's get that out of the way. Jesus did it. The great work is finished. So this is talking for the people born again in the family. So we're called to holiness, and holiness is what? It's sanctification. Sanctification is the state of being holy or set apart for God's purpose. So we put that connection together, right? So it says in Timothy, it says he has saved us and called us to a holy life. So that right there is telling you a lot. He already saved us, right? Now he's calling us to live a holy life. Not because of anything we've done, but because of his own purposes, for his own purposes and his grace, and by his grace. This grace was given to us in Christ Jesus before the beginning of time. So this is how you know there's a high probability that you realize you're a chosen one, okay? Because there's some who are called according to God. Like it's no choice of your own, and I've said this before. It's like, if you're on SR, you know what I know, because God is telling you the same thing. You're called to be set apart. You're being called to set yourself apart, to get rid of the impurities, right, that the world and the lust of the world has to offer you. So you're setting yourself apart for God's purposes, right? God does not force us to be sanctified, right? But according to the calling, you're called. You know what I'm saying? Many are called, few are chosen. So it says we are called to holiness. He has saved us and called us to a holy life. Now this is good because all these verses will tie in with each other. This is in Romans. It says, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy. So he's talking to the church, the people who are born again. We're children of God, sons of God. So in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy, that's the key word right there, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. So offering your body, he's talking about the physical body. He's talking about the physical body here. Offer your body as a living sacrifice. Well, how do we do that? Well, the key word is holy. What is holiness? Holy and pleasing to God is when you do this, when you offer your body as a living sacrifice, it leads to holiness, and it is pleasing to God. So holiness, we're going back up. Sanctification is a state of being holy or set apart for God's purpose. Okay? For this is the will of God, your sanctification. You see how everything's tying in? That you should abstain from fornication, from sexual immorality, right? This is where it ties in. Why I know for sure that to offer your body as a living sacrifice is going to be not partaking of sexual sins. You know what I mean? And it also goes with the eyes, of course, right? Because with your eyes, you can look at a woman and lust in your heart, right? So it's not just the only thing. It's like really a whole bodily thing. But the evidence, the effect from what can stir up within, maybe by what you hear. Maybe you hear some sensual girl messing with you, or she's trying to entice you by talking sweet and sexy, and winking her eye or blinking her eyelashes at you and moving her body around. Well, with your eyes you see, and then you get stimulated, and then boom, next thing you know, you guys have a one night stand, and then sexual sins. But even where it starts initially is like, that's why he says keep your eyes straight, don't look left or right. These women are making it very guys, it's difficult out here, right? We know what's up based on how the dress code is and everything in the world, the media, the movies. But this is how it is purposely set up by the Matrix, to get you to not live set apart, sanctified, and to be holy. So this is what it is, guys. Offer your body as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. You're not partaking of sexual sins. So are there other things for your body to be a living sacrifice? I'm sure there is. I can guarantee it. But right now we're going to stick on this topic about semen retention and how I can show you guys through scriptures that this is the will of God. It's being broken down very plain in these scriptures. I know Paul talks a lot about it, about disciplining your body, knowing how to put your body into a submission, by the Spirit, talks a lot about this. So in 2 Timothy, this is another picture for you guys to realize what sanctification is like, because you're like, well, maybe, why should I be sanctified? Why should I, this sexual stuff feels so good. What's the reasoning for this? Why do you think I should do this? Well, number one, you want to, as a Christian, as a born again Christian, right? Because I'm speaking to the church. It's like you want to be pleasing to God. You want to be effective in the church, and you want to be used by God. So in order to be used by God for a special purpose that is going to be up to God, you're just going to be the thing you're going to be doing is renewing your mind and presenting yourself as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. What God chooses to do with you as a born again Christian is up to God, and I'm sure as the relationship continues, you will find out, and I think everybody's unique and has their own, special purposes from God. If they're called, and if they answer the call to this of sanctifying themselves, of being willing to follow God's will, put it like that, to be sanctified, living in that state of holiness, you'll be set apart for God's purposes. So if you're not set apart for God's purposes, it's like you're going to be, how there's rank systems or positions in your workplace, wherever that may be. There's the, everybody matters. I'll put it like this. Everybody matters. In the military, when I was in the military, everybody had a place and a proper position. Without one area in the military, another part would be weak and maybe even crumble. So Everybody, the pilots always get the glory, right? The pilots, I'm a pilot, I'm flying these. Well, what about the mechanics? What about the guys you never hear about who are refueling the plane and doing all this other stuff, right? Everything has to work in conjunction. So it doesn't mean you're not part of the family. It just might mean, common. But that's not a bad thing. When you're in the family of God, that's very special, right? So look at it like that, at least. Don't consider yourself like, oh, God's not using me. What I'm saying is God will use you for special purposes, right? So don't think just because you might not be used for a special purpose, and you see that other guy getting, he's doing all this stuff, all these exploits for the Lord and for the kingdom. It's like, man, I wish I could do that and stuff. It's the thing that's interesting is like, I know God chooses according to his own will. You know what I mean? But for me, in my perspective, I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. I see how how things are lining up. Like, okay, man, I want to be sanctified. I want to, be called and or answer the call and live a holy life and be set apart. But I was like, well, even if I don't like figure this out perfectly or get this right, I'm extremely thankful. You know what I mean? To be a citizen in the kingdom of heaven is like a wonderful thing. But you understand, like, this is for certain people, like, who are listening perhaps to this, and they've heard it throughout their life. Ever since you were a child, you were just called to semen retention, even though you didn't really like line it up or sync it up with the Bible yet of what's actually, like, this is actually God's will, guys. This is God's will to abstain from sexual immorality. And this is sanctification. So the last part of this video, it's about sanctification, how it can be pictured. This is in 2 Timothy as well. It says, in a large house there are articles, not only of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay. Some are for special purposes and some are for common use, but they're all in the house, right? They're all in this symbolic house, the house of the Lord, and we are vessels. There's some gold, some silver, some wood, some clay, but they're all in the house, right? If you weren't a believer, if you weren't saved and born again, you would not be in the house of the Lord, right? I'm not meaning like the church with the brick and mortar, because nowadays I'm not trying to knock on anything, but it's like, I won't go there, but understand that the church, the bodies, the church, the people is that which makes up the church. And if you're a, symbolically speaking, of course, you're a brick in the church, but yeah, there's special purposes, some for special and some for common. Those who cleanse themselves from the latter will be instruments for special purposes, made holy, useful to the master, and prepared to do any good work. So this is why I'm realizing now that the renewal of the mind and the sanctification process is actually, I believe God leaves up to you, because you're saved, you're born again. Now it's like, well, the soul and the body still has like sin nature, kind of residual bull crap, right? That like you just sometimes find yourself, dang, I sinned. It's like, oh man, I sinned, But if you're called to understand this, it's like sanctification process is like, man, I want to be like a gold vessel for God, right? To be used for special purposes. Like I said, I think God leaves that up to us, after you're born again, after you're saved. But it says, this is the key word, those who cleanse themselves from the latter will be instruments for special purposes. So it's just like, this says those who do this, right? Like a lot of the times in this modern day church, we expect God to do everything for us, right? Like everything. But what I'm understanding about this relationship with God is that he wants us to also a unified effort, right? Putting forth effort and a willingness, to find the will of God. Like, what does God want me to do? Well, I'm telling you guys, this is it right here. So to be clean, to be holy, to be set apart, you wouldn't get like a normal, what is it right here, a clay vessel for something like a special occasion, it's just common sense, right? So God can use you, and I think it's available to everybody who's a born again Christian. But some, I think, when it comes to the chosen aspect, it's like there's no like answering the call. You're chosen like by God before the foundation of the earth, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts, right? God is going to use you, and it is what it is. But so we are called to holiness. I'm thinking not many people answer. And this is just my guess here, guys. I'm thinking not many people answer this call just based on the general consensus I get of overall, like, here's the good news about it though. I think people are coming on board, and it's something, like I said, they never really thought it was lining up like this, but people just starting on semen retention. You know what I mean? Like, they don't even realize what they're doing. Guys, this is good. This is a good thing to practice, a good thing to do. This is God's will, man. But plug yourself into God more. You know what I mean? Like, seek God first. As you're on semen retention, you realize that you are in the process being set apart, you know, and you'll drop other things that the Lord will help you out with and show you, you know, that, you know, if you really want to be used by God, he'll be like, you know, this isn't going to benefit you for the purposes I have for you, right? And it'll be like that, you know. He's not going to point the finger and condemn you and yell at you and oh, you're going to hell and all this other stuff, right? Like, God don't work like that for his born again believers. You know what I mean? It's nothing but grace and mercy and compassion and patience, but things will be exposed out of love, right? It's like, if you want to be used more and more, hey, you might have to give up that alcohol too. If you want to be used more while you're on semen retention, hey, maybe you know, it'd be beneficial for you to drop the weed. You know, it would help you out, because the Lord cares and loves for us. So it's like He wants us to live and not die. You know, but He will guide us and lead us to the paths of life, the things that cause life. Eating fruits and vegetables more, maybe. It could be simple stuff like that. That we always look for profound things from God and deep revelations, but it's like, it's really, guys, not that difficult to figure out. You know, just choose the things that are life and cause life. But yeah, man, just causing like an awareness and a connection with semen retention and where God's viewpoint is because I'm reading this from the scriptures, and this is clearly the will of God, to abstain from sexual sins. So when you're on semen retention, you're abstaining from sexual sins, guys, and it starts there, because eventually it gets to a thought process where you might be keeping the seed, you might be having forsaken the sights, but sometimes you get like lustful thoughts maybe, and it could be out of nowhere, right? You're like, where is this? I'm not even trying to be like this, right? I don't want any part of this. Well, this is where I figured out recently. I was like, okay, I'm realizing where this is coming from, and it's that sin nature bullcrap, that flesh. So it says to kill the deeds of the flesh. You know, there's another word used in the King James, but basically kill that flesh by walking in the Spirit. You know, you walk in the Spirit, and you won't be satisfied in that flesh. That inner voice, the chatter, the flesh, you know, that hates God, the flesh that hates God, the flesh that hates you. It's anti-human, anti-life, wants everything that has to do with death, that will get you to live a quick degen life, you know, in the fast lane, killing you actually slowly but fast at the same time. It's like, that's the stuff that's against you. But when you live more in the Spirit, I myself am realizing this, guys, that the flesh gets weaker. And I know, like, most Christians understand this, but it's true. It really is true. And you know what is even more interesting is it's a daily thing, guys. Like, if you skip a meal, if you skip a day, you get hungry, right? You go 24 hours in fasting, you're like, man, I'm hungry. You might not realize this because you're not like humans, including myself, we're not really attuned to like what it's like to really be you know, in sync fully with God, and then versus what it would be like without. You know what I mean? So the more we get familiar with God and walking with Him and learning about His love and all sorts of good stuff from Him, it's like the more we would miss it when we're not in it. You know what I mean? If we partake of a fleshly thing, it's like, man, now this hits even harder, right? So like at the very beginning, like you wouldn't even get that worked up over, you know, watching porn sites or something. Now it's like years later, if you ever even did that, it's like, man, that's a hit on me. You know what I'm saying? Like that's rough. It hits you harder because you know the difference of you walking with God more. You guys see what I'm saying? So you'll progress. You'll get better and better, but just stay tuned into God. And, you know, He will never let you go. But it's like you start missing that meal, you feel it more, and then it makes you want to naturally, supernaturally, really, I think, I like to use that word, supernatural. You want to go back, and you want to stay there as much as possible. You know what I mean? So this is really sanctification, is like the closer you are to the Lord, the more you walk with Him. It's an automatic process, really. It's actually effortless. It's not nothing. But I think it's something about you being willing to actually go that extra mile, being in the family of God already. You're not going to drop your pack and say, I'm going to heaven no matter what. You know, I'm just going to chill and kind of live casually and lackadaisical, you know, and whatever, you know, just kind of be the casual Christian. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm the type who wants to be like, you know, transformed fully, you know, and just living in that will all the time, you know. But yeah, man, it's like semen retention for life, dude. Like for real, for real. So yeah, man, I hope you guys get something good out of this, and we'll see you on another video probably tomorrow. All right, peace.